So I'm going to share my screen as yesterday for some slides. Is the sound okay?
Yes.
Yeah, it's fine.
And you can see the slide?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So welcome to today's session. So my name is Alexandros. I'm an IDSP founding coordinator, and today we are initiating a new sequence of sessions, let's say, called IDSP20C ALT or ALT updates, with a short name IDSP20C AU, and this is the first session on the 6th of August 2020 in our Microsoft Teams general channel. So we are pleased to initiate online update sessions on our IDSP team with the title IDSP20C ALT updates. These sessions include dissertation research progress updates by accepted abstracts authors of our IDSP competition 2020 and questions by the participants. So IDSP20C means our IDSP competition 2020 held a few days ago for postgraduate taught dissertations in education, social science, and psychology. But today we're focusing on applied linguistics and TESOL with the acronym ALT. In our first session, IDSP20CAU #1, we are hearing from 3 IDSP20C finalists, Jensen, Marybeth, and Yu-Ting. The sessions are moderated by Marybeth Martin, assisted by me. Let me now briefly introduce the presenters. So Marybeth is a moderator for these sessions and also presenter. She's a bronze medalist for our competition 2020. She's pursuing an Masters of Arts in Applied Linguistics at the UCL IOE and holds a BSc in Liberal Studies with concentrations in Anthropology and History in the US. She is an English for Academic Purposes EAP tutor at the University of Essex International College. Her current research interests focus on the effect multilingualism has on the mind and brain. And it would be interesting to see the difference between the two in your presentation, Marybeth. So welcome, Marybeth.
Thank you.
Our next presenter, who are still waiting for her to join, is Jensen Yang. Is a silver medalist for our competition, and she's studying a Master of Arts in the same program as Marybeth. So they are classmates at UCL, applied in MA Applied Linguistics at UCL Institute of Education, holds a BA in English. Jensen is interested in language and ideology, currently researching Afrophobia on Chinese social media sites, aiming to unpack racist discourse in cyberspace, the internet, through a combination of quantitative and qualitative methods. Jensen, I think she's not yet here, but we can welcome her in advance. And finally, Yu-Ting. She's our last presenter for today and finalist number 5 in our competition. She's studying TESOL, teaching English to speakers of other languages, pre-service. So before starting, let's say, the main teaching career, MA program at the UCL IOE, having completed a bachelor's degree in English at the National Taiwan Normal University. Yu-Ting launched a teaching career as a high school English teacher in Taiwan. And Yu-Ting's current research interests have to do with the field of learner autonomy, including the implementation of autonomy-oriented curricula at local level. Welcome, Yu-Ting.
Thank you.
So finally, administrative topics and our gratitude and wishes. So attendance is open to all our team members that can also ask questions in the meeting chat. We're extending our warm gratitude and wishes to our moderator, 3 presenters and participants. The session is recorded and can be watched later in our general channel. And reminder that our second session of this, so it's not just a one-off session, we're planning to hold 3 for this period. So the next one is scheduled for the 20th of August, so 2 weeks from today. Same time, same channel, 8:30 general channel, with updates from 4 other ALT accepted abstract authors. But depending on the availability, we may reconsider the presenters. Finally, so maybe we may ask one of today's presenters to represent. And finally, wishing a fruitful discussion, I'm inviting Marybeth to initiate the first of these promising sessions.
Thank you so much. So I think I'm just going to, oh, there we go. All right. So I will share some of my progress first. And then if anyone has any questions, I'll welcome those. And then after that, I'll hand the floor over to Yu-Ting.
Thank you.
Unless Chen shows up, then of course. Okay, so I'm just going to share mine quickly. So I have 3 things to show. The first thing that you're looking at, and I won't show every tab of this, but this is simply the data sheet that I created to organize all of my findings. So you can see down here at the bottom, I have group tabs where all of my tasks were, all the raw data was organized according to the task. And of course, a lot of this will not make sense, but these are basically all of my tasks, as well as participant IDs and then raw scores. So I did this for every group, and then all of the statistics I organized on here as well, just to get it all into one place to keep it organized and keep it easy to reference whenever I was going to write. So this is my first, I guess, bit of progress. So you can see all of the statistical analysis that I've done is here, as well as some group analysis, some mean scores, all organized like this. And what I've been able to do is simply take some of these tables that I've created and put them directly into my dissertation. So what you're looking at now is an excerpt from the dissertation that I've written. And one of the strategies that I've used for writing is to begin with the methods. So it's just I think a helpful trick that was passed on to me to start writing your methods first, and then follow with the procedure, your materials, as well as your results, since that is, I guess, the most fresh information in your mind, and it's helpful just to get that down on paper, and already you end up with a few thousand words, which helps you feel as though you've made quite a lot of progress on your writing. So I feel really great about my progress, but it's perhaps the 2 easiest sections on the dissertation, but it is a good step out of the way, good chunk of it out of the way. So that's what I've started with. And what I do for the other sections is, before I go to write them, and I think this is just a very commonly used tactic or strategy, I tend to outline everything. And I like to outline it on the document itself. That way I kind of can see where I'm going, and I can eliminate the points as I write them. So the current section that I'm working on is the discussion of the results. And you can see I've still got it in outline format. I've started to write, but as I work through the outline, I will gradually replace, of course, each of these bullet points and the subpoints with the actual text. So that's sort of a strategy for how I write. And of course, I'll move through all of this. Next, that's what I'm working on currently. Here again, I have a few tables that I've gone ahead and copied into the document, and these I've been able to adapt directly from my data sheets. And then, of course, these will be positioned within the text where they fit most appropriately, but they're here as placeholders at the moment. And if I go through, this is sort of, I guess, the middle of the work, but of course, if we go up, you can see there's, of course, the abstract that we all know we have, and then we've got our intro and other outlines for the sections that will come at the beginning. So that's where I stand with the writing process at the moment. The last thing that I'll share is something that I find helpful every now and then. I use this quite often with my students at Essex. And it's basically just a phrase bank of academic language. And what I find especially helpful is the section about reporting results. And what I find, even though I'm a native speaker and I've, written academic work before, of course, sometimes I find myself stuck in a bit of a rut when I'm writing, and I find myself wanting to repeat the same phrases over and over. And so I find this helpful. Yeah, I find this helpful to just give me suggestions of different ways to present information, to present results, so it just doesn't sound repetitive over and over. And so it's really useful in the sense that it's organized really well. For example, this section that I have open at the moment is all about referring to data in a table or a chart. So all of these phrases can be useful in referencing data in charts. And as you can see, I have several of those in my dissertation. So that is one resource that I found useful. So I'm happy to share that around if anyone's interested. And yeah, that's me. So if there's any questions, I will welcome them now.
Oh, thank you, Marybeth, for sharing. Oh, actually, I find like many similarities between how I write my dissertation and how you wrote your dissertation.
Okay.
I especially agree that we should all start with methodology first.
Yeah,
I
also yeah.
Yes, I also started with methodology too.
Okay.
Yeah, and also I also agree with I think you suggested a very useful resources for like sometimes we always repeat the phrases in our writing. Yes, so I find the website very useful. And I'm wondering, did you also use the Excel to calculate your data?
No. So I actually used SPSS.
Oh, okay.
And because I'm much less familiar with SPSS than I am with Excel, I found it helpful just to copy the data from SPSS into Excel so I could organize it into one place. As I become more proficient with SPSS, I'm hoping I can keep it all on one system. Or either start calculating in Excel, but I'm much better at presenting data in Excel than I am calculating with it. So I guess my skills at the moment are a bit divided across the two. So I like to use it for organizing my data, but not so much calculating at the moment.
Yeah, so I think it's super organized, like to like have like everything, in the grids so that it's like clear. Yeah.
Right.
I really like that.
So many thanks, Marybeth, for this presentation. It was like a short seminar. What I would like to ask is, which point of your dissertation you consider at the moment the most important. So the one that you should put more effort, and second, which you are finding more challenging at the moment. So two, one, which you think is the most challenging for you to make progress, and which one is the most important. Maybe they are the same, but maybe they are different.
Right. I think it would definitely be the discussion. Because I mean, it's all about interpreting, you know, not just reporting the results, but also offering your interpretation about why it either aligned with your predictions or did not align with your predictions. So for what I'm up against right now, fortunately, some of the data did align with my predictions. Unfortunately, some of it did not. And so you are having to go back into the literature and find explanations for your results that align with, you know, previous research, and then offer, you know, that as an explanation. So I feel like that's the most, I would say, labor intensive part of the dissertation, and where the majority of your own analysis is going to be found. So I feel like that is the most important part. Beyond that, you know, the literature review, the introduction, those are certainly, you know, important, but that's, I feel, less reliant on your own analysis of the results and more of a, you know, setting the stage for what you did in your study. So I would say definitely for both of your questions, it would be the discussion.
So on this, I would like also to bring into the discussion that when I was discussing with my dissertation supervisor, and I had some results that were not as expected, they told me you shouldn't consider this as a failure, but as an opportunity to say that, look, it's something new that I'm bringing forth. Mm-hmm. You just have to justify it. So find a solid justification for this, and it may be something that is even more interesting than just something to say that I'm just following whatever already exists. Mm-hmm. So you can see it as an opportunity rather than a failure.
Right, right. Definitely. Thank you. Okay, Yu-Ting, we will turn the floor over to you.
Okay, let me share my screen first.
Yeah.
Oh my God, how do I share my screen?
It's the rectangle with the arrow.
Oh, yes. Okay, found it. So can you share my, can you see my screen now?
Yes, it's still loading, but yeah, there we go.
Okay, so
you prepared slides. Well done.
Oh, beautiful.
So currently my progress is I finished writing my dissertation, but now I'm kind of editing and also proofreading my dissertation. So there are some helpful strategies that I found during my research process, but I'm pretty sure that different people have different ways of organizing things. But these are the strategies that I find helpful. So I'm going to divide it into two parts. The first part is for drafting, like for writing, and the other part is for revision. So there are 4 strategies that I found very helpful and useful during my drafting stages. The first 2 focus on the content, and the first 2 focus on the literature review, and the third one and the fourth one focus on the data analysis, and my research is a qualitative one. So these are all like very simple tips. For the first one, I always feel like sometimes it's very hard to write literature review, because sometimes you just read all the books, but the data are a bit like here and there, and you have to like go and like look for it. So I think it's very important to keep everything organized. So what I did was that I put everything in the Microsoft Office, and then I I label them and I use the search icon to find the information that I want. And I will show you later how I did this. And the second one is Marybeth just shared, is to outline before writing, which I find very important because it helps you examine like the logic between the data. And for the data analysis, for recognizing my own personal bias, because what I did was qualitative research that has to interact with like human beings. So sometimes I feel like my bias can influence the result of my research. So one thing that I did to recognize my personal bias and mitigate the impact of bias is to employ a 3-part log, and I will introduce that later. And the first one is how I analyze my data systematically by employing Burnard 1991 thematic analysis steps. So the first one, yeah, I know some things are in Chinese, but this is how I organize my literature review. So basically, I will have the title, and I will also kind of cut out the important pieces that I will need, that I will paraphrase, and I will label them and highlight them like this. For example, like learner autonomy definition. And then I will use the search icon. For example, if I'm writing the learner autonomy definition part, and I need some references, I will use the search icon and type in learner autonomy definition. And this can quickly like sort through all my literature review and find the according pieces for me to cite. And the second one is to outline before writing. So I also outline before writing each paragraph or each part. So for example, for learner autonomy brief definition, I will write out like every like how I want to organize them in sequence and the authors that I want to cite. I will put everything in order and before writing, as I think this kind of makes everything more efficient. And to recognize bias in this qualitative research, I use the 3-part log because I share similar experience with my participants in the interview. They are novel high school English teachers, and I'm also a novel high school English teacher. So sometimes it's very hard to not ask leading questions or not like, kind of like influence the process of the interview. So what I did was that this log is composed of 3 parts. The first part is the transcription of your data, and the second part is your own interpretation on the verbal words. And I think the most important part is the third part, that is the connection with your past experience, to make sure that when you're selecting the quotes in your data, you're not like picking those that that you believe to be true. Like you're actually looking from a bigger picture of the research. And the fourth strategy I used was how I analyze my research. That is by using the thematic analysis steps by Burnard 1991, which I find very useful because in this literature, they organize everything in steps. So I just simply modify like the suggestion that Bernard gave me, and these are the stages of my data analysis. So I just follow these. And another tip that I find very useful is to always keep a complete copy of your transcription to make sure that the context is not fragmented when you write your dissertation, when you choose the quotes for your dissertation. Yes, so these are basically for drafting. And for revision, I also found 4 strategies very useful. The first one is that the biggest problem that I encounter after I sent my draft to the supervisor is that he told me that I lack some literature review. I lack some supports for some points that I pointed out, and also I need to kind of add in some literature review in the literature review part. So I suggest always go back to the literature review documents if you need to add more literature review and use the search icon. And for the second strategy is to keep different copies of revision, because sometimes you're just like revising everything in one document, and sometimes you feel like, okay, so this is not good, I'm gonna delete it. But the next day you feel like, oh, what's that thing that I deleted yesterday? Because I want to use that thing today, but I forgot what I deleted yesterday. So yeah, so I always find it very useful to just keep different copies, so you can always go back and compare between copies to see whether like you're making sense. And for the third tip, yes, Marybeth just suggested a very useful website, and this is another website I find useful, is thesaurus.com. Because sometimes I always feel like I'm repeating the same phrases or the same word, and sometimes I want to like kind of, you know, like make everything like more diverse. I will go to thesaurus.com to look for synonyms of certain words so I can replace it. So I find it very useful. And the fourth point during the revision process is to examine your dissertation with time lapses in between, because sometimes I feel like I'm just like so buried into my like dissertation and like looking at things so close. It's very hard to look from a bigger picture, like look from a farther distance. So I suggest like sometimes just take a break, and for the, like maybe next week, like look at the same part again, and you'll find things that you feel like, oh, it's not making sense, or like you feel like, oh, it can be better. Yeah. So I find these strategies like helpful during my research process. Yes. So I hope that these are also helpful to you. Yeah. Yeah, and that's a presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Yu-Ting. That was beautiful to begin with. Yeah, absolutely. So I do just have a few comments and questions. I really, really appreciate your revision strategy, because there's one thing that I had not thought of before. And you mentioned deleting pieces and then wanting to go back to the piece that you deleted. What I find that I do is, you know, and I think it also ties in with the fact that you say that you get so consumed and you're so focused on your dissertation that you can't step back and see the bigger picture. So what I really appreciated is that you have multiple copies of your revision, and you can go back to earlier copies and perhaps see things that you have not edited. So I guess my question is, do you often find yourself looking at earlier versions of your dissertation and realizing that they were not, I guess, maybe as bad as you thought they were, or you were being overly critical?
Yes. I do, because I will highlight the parts that I edited, or the part that is like different between pieces, and when I go back, when I see those, I always feel like, hey, like this part is not that bad, or I can use it somewhere else. Yeah. So yes, I do find like sometimes when I go back, I feel like, oh, it's not as bad, or maybe I just have to like, yeah, maybe I have to just to make like a little changes, and then I can use it again. So yeah, so this is basically what I do. Like I just go back and like read again and feel like, okay, like I can still make use of this. And especially when I receive feedback from my supervisor, like when she told me that I should add like some more stuff into my literature review or my data presentation, then I have to go back to those, you know, like earlier pieces to find the according data, because of the word limit, like I eliminated some in the final version. So I find it very useful to, you know, kind of like go back and like take the pieces back again and try to like fix it and like put it into my literature review. Yeah.
So Yu-Ting, can you also answer my previous question? So what did you find the most challenging, and what is the most important part of your dissertation?
Yeah, I also find because for Marybeth, she did the quantitative research, so she has a special section called the discussion. And for qualitative research, like my research, we kind of blend the discussion part into the data analysis, like the data presentation part, like the results part. So what we did was that we will employ a method called thick description. That is, we will present typical cases and also cases that have general pattern. And then the final part is our interpretation and how it's like in line with the past research. So I find this part very important and also difficult to do, because you have to make sure that, it's again about biases. You have to make sure that you're not choosing the quotes because you want to make an argument. Like, you're actually choosing it because it really reflects the general patterns. And also, I also find it very difficult to look at my data, like to see like how it's connected with past research and what are the new findings. Yeah, so I think this part is like the most important part of my dissertation, and I wrote like most of it, like I wrote about that in this section. Yeah, so I find it very important.
So from today's session overall, let's say as a comment, it seems that it is useful to see these strategies, tips about dissertation. As a first session, it seems it was a nice introduction. So what we could do in a future session, if we don't have other participants, is to go deeper into what you are doing, and so you can show us something that you are doing in more detail. So Marybeth presented us so many correlations, Pearson correlation, statistics, SPSS. So it would be interesting if you could have a demonstration of how you are doing this. So to say that I'm doing this, put this data here, this is the result, this is my interpretation. So instead of keeping just an abstract, high bird's eye view of the dissertation, to go a little deeper and see some details of how we are working on data. So the data collection, the data analysis, maybe the data analysis would be easier to demonstrate because the data collection is taking place, let's say, in a different. Or you can even, if you think that is important, you can even say how you collected the data, for example. So I used this platform. I did this. This is my how I collected the participants. It seems that maybe the data analysis would be more interesting to see how you analyze the data. So which software you are using, how you run it, how you get the results. And then you can also add how you interpret the results. So you say that Pearson correlation is below 0.05. It means it is a statistically significant difference, for example, for quantitative analysis. Or Yu-Ting can show us the themes and codes that she used in the dissertation. So, and then we can discuss on this. So have a little more depth into it. What is your opinion?
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
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 And
definitely.
maybe we can make also some suggestions. So for example, if we know something, we can say, have you tried this? For example, why you chose t-test and not ANOVA test, let's say. Such questions. So to be a little more in depth on what you are doing. And you don't have to give a correct answer, let's say, to be, if we're doing it to help each other. We're not trying to find faults to expose ourselves. We just want to help ourselves. So even if you don't give let's say, the expected answer, you may say, I have not considered ANOVA test, but now I can consider it, for example. I don't know if there is time to do this at this point, but maybe for the future.
Right. I think, yeah, definitely for the future. I think it's quite difficult to fit in 30 minutes.
But
so
as you presented today, you can present, let's say, a short demo. So instead of being just a general presentation, to be focused. Let's say today I'm going to present you how I analyzed, how I compared these two groups with t-test in SPSS. So I'm doing this is the results, and this is the interpretation. So just one. Instead of trying to cover the whole dissertation, you just say just one. I'm presenting how I compared this group A with Group B, China with UK, and how I found that the China students were were having higher performance than the UK students using this data. So, like a short demo, we can, if time allows, of course, you can consider about it and let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you, definitely. Okay, I think Chen Shin, she's still not joined, right?
I contacted her, but she said that she had the wrong date. So,
no. Okay.
So it seems that we can conclude here.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
She may join next time if she's available.
Hopefully, yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much, Yu-Ting. I really enjoyed hearing yours. And thank you again, Alexandros, for coordinating and for your feedback as well.
Thank you. Thank you
Many
so
thanks.
much.
Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.